Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tracing an absolutely fascinating 600-year historical journey. We're looking at one of the most unique frameworks of leadership and spiritual lineage in human history, the succession of the Dalai Lamas, going all the way from the 1st to the 14th. We're going to map out exactly how this lineage has flowed across the centuries. We'll be looking closely at how long these figures lived, when they passed away, and how the eras changed around them. It's an incredible historical timeline, so let's get right into it. Okay, let's dive into this. I want you to imagine a leader whose followers believe they haven't just served for a single term, or, even a single lifetime. Instead, they've essentially returned to their people 14 times over the course of more than 6 centuries. It's this continuous, almost magical relay race where devotees believe a single spirit is passing the baton to itself through time. But to really grasp how this framework operates, we first need to understand the title itself and the core belief behind it. So, in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, the Dalai Lama isn't just your standard political or temporal leader. The word Dalai itself is actually a Mongolic word, and it translates to ocean. But the real anchor of this entire lineage is the concept of the Bodhisattva. You see, a central belief here is that the Dalai Lama is a living Bodhisattva, specifically an emanation of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion. And a Bodhisattva, that's a realized being who has vowed to continuously be reborn into the world, just to help all living things. So this entire 600-year framework is built squarely on this beautiful idea of a continuous return to aid humanity. Chapter 1. The Early Centuries. To see exactly how this lineage began, we've got to travel way back to the 14th century. These foundational figures of the lineage stretch across the 14th, 15th, and 16th centuries. We kick things off with the first Dalai Lama, Gendon Drupe, who was born in 1391. The lineage then flows right to Tenzin Gyatso II, then Sonam III, and Yonten IV, who passed away in 1617. Notice how the timeline connects so seamlessly? As one lifetime wraps up, the next chapter immediately begins. And what's particularly amazing here is the lifespan of that very first Dalai Lama, Gendon Drupe. He lived for 83 years. I mean, think about it. In a time period spanning the late 1300s and most of the 1400s, reaching 83 was a remarkably long life. He essentially laid down a massive, stable foundation for the tradition, holding on to that baton of compassion for over 8 decades before passing it into the next century. Chapter 2. The Middle Lineage. As the 1600s roll in, the world is changing rapidly, but this tradition firmly continues its march through time. And this brilliantly illustrates how the middle centuries of our story unfolded. We've got the 5th through the 8th Dalai Lamas, spanning the 17th and 18th centuries, bringing us right to the dawn of the 1800s. You have Lozang, the 5th, living a solid 65 years. Then Tengyang, the 6th, whose life was quite short at just 23 years. But then the lineage stabilizes again with Khelzang the 7th and Jamphel the 8th, who both lived nearly 50 years each. It's just a steady, rhythmic continuation of the lineage. Chapter 3. The Short Lifetimes. Now, history is rarely perfectly predictable, and as we cross over into the 19th century, the timeline experiences a pretty dramatic historical shift. Now, what's really interesting about this is the math for the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th Dalai Lamas. A striking pattern emerges here. Lungtuk, the 9th, lived to be just 10 years old. Sultrim, the 10th, lived to 21. Khedrip, the 11th, and Trinley, the 12th, both passed away at just 18 years of age. So all 4 of these 19th century lamas passed away incredibly young. Just think about what that actually means for the lineage. We had 4 distinct lifetimes packed into a single century, and literally not a single one of these leaders reached their 22nd birthday. The baton of this tradition was passed so incredibly quickly during this specific historical era. The continuity remained totally unbroken, but the turnover? It was absolutely unprecedented, especially compared to the long life of that first Dalai Lama we looked at earlier. Chapter 4. The Modern Era. This brings our timeline out of the turbulent 19th century, bridging the 20th century and bringing us right up to the present day. And look at how the lifespans rebound here. Following the short life of Trinley XII, we see Thubten, the 13th Dalai Lama. He was born in 1876 and lived until 1933, a span of 57 years. His longer life provided this absolutely crucial bridge of stability into the 20th century, really setting the stage for the current chapter of the lineage, Tenzin Gyatso, the 14th Dalai Lama. 1935. That's the year a boy named Lamo Thondup was born, the child who would eventually be recognized as the 14th Dalai Lama. When you consider that he was born in 1935 and is still the incumbent leader today, it really highlights just how long this current chapter has lasted. He's overseen this tradition for nearly 9 decades now. It's a profound contrast to those short lifetimes we saw in the 1800s, right? Over this incredibly long modern lifetime, his devotees have come to use some highly reverent, almost storybook-like nicknames for him. Tibetans know him as Gyalwa Rinpoche, which means the precious jewel-like Buddha master. They also call him Kundun, translating to the presence, and Yizhin Norbu, meaning the wish-fulfilling gem. These titles just bring such a deep sense of warmth, reverence, and wonder to his identity, going way beyond just his formal name. And that reverence ties perfectly back to where we started. Whether we're talking about the first Dalai Lama living to 83 in the 15th century, the rapid succession of young leaders in the 19th century, or the 14th Dalai Lama living through the modern era today, the framework remains completely intact. According to the belief system at the very heart of this tradition, it is the exact same spirit, an emanation of the Bodhisattva of compassion, connecting all 14 lifetimes on this 600-year journey. It really is a sweeping historical narrative unlike any other. We've seen periods of great longevity and periods of rapid, tragic brevity. Yet the lineage has continued century after century, and it leaves us with a pretty profound question. After 600 years, 14 distinct lifetimes, and an incredibly long current modern chapter, what will the next era of this ancient, continuous story look like? It's something that historians and followers alike are watching with deep interest. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey through time, and I'll see you in the next Explainer.